Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I have the Hip Kit Club unboxing for the month of August 2020, and I only got the base kit this month. I actually did not go on and check out products beforehand this time. I just left it to the base kit, and usually I get a sneak peek and decide if I want the extra embellishments and stuff, and this time I just wanted to keep it simple. And when I got the box, it was a surprise to me what was going to be in there because I hadn't peeked. And so this product line is entirely Hip Kit branded. Now I've been subscribing for close to a year, and I've never gotten an entirely Hip Kit branded box before, so that was fun. And you can see there's a wide range of color palettes here with some bolder blues and oranges and some softer pinks and yellows. And then when we get to the embellishments here, you can see it's got very much a youthful vibe going on. So speaking of embellishments, this kit includes a Nuvo Drops product, which is the only non-Hip Kit Club branded item, and I've used these a little bit, so I'm going to have fun playing with those. It also includes a Hip Kit stamp set, and a pack of chipboard stickers, and a pack of die-cut elements, as well as a puffy alphabet. And here is a close-up peek at all of the embellishments. Now, if you've seen my videos before, you know I always do a project when I do an unboxing, because while it's lovely to look at pretty things, it's even better to watch and see how they can be put to use. So let's move on to the project, and to get started, I made my own embellishments with that Nuvo Drops product. And these, if you put them on a nonstick craft mat and let them dry, they will turn into your own enamel dot kind of embellishments, and I just free-handed some shapes this time. So today I'm doing a scrapbook layout about my birthday back in May and how my daughter set up a spa day for my birthday as a special way to celebrate a lockdown birthday like so many of us have been doing. And I made those hearts because it made my heart happy that she did this for me. So I will pull those in when I get to embellishing everything. And part of my process here is always to pull out a whole bunch of embellishments that I think might have anything to do with this layout, both in these chipboard shapes and also in these die cut shapes. So I pick way more things than I ever could use, but at least that way gives me options and my brain can start thinking on how I want to put all those things to use. And then I start looking at my papers and my photos and deciding what kind of color palette I want to go with. Now all of those embellishments are have very bold, strong colors like the bold oranges and yellows. And so I want to keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that these photos are a little bit more softer in theme, and so I will show you a trick that I use to kind of bring those two things together, and this tissue paper is that trick. So with this tissue paper, I just cut it down to a 12 by 12 square because I'm not sure yet how much I want to use, and then I start thinking about layers and such, and I decide what I want to do with this tissue paper is actually use it as a soft layer in the background. Now see this tip, let me slow you down here. When I want to get a really soft edge to my tissue paper, I actually get it wet first, and I just use a paintbrush and regular water, and I draw the line where I want it to tear, and then when you tear it, it actually gives you more of a feathery edge. You can tear tissue paper normally, and you'll get a torn edge for sure, but if you want this really soft feathery edge, you'll get a very different effect if it's wet first. So I just wanted to mention a quick tip. If you're going to use tissue paper in this way, you should do a test patch first, because some tissue paper will bleed when it gets wet, and you probably don't want that. Alright, while the tissue paper is drying, because you don't want to use it wet, I start turning my attention to other things, and I'm thinking about layers, and I'm not quite sure what I want to do yet. I know I want this vertical design, but I don't know how I want my layers to go. So instead I turn my attention to creating my own embellishments. These were little leftover fingernail stickers from our spa day, and I knew I wanted to incorporate them somehow into this layout, and I decided to make these little flower designs, and they will be a layer to my embellishment clusters. And when I'm satisfied with those, I will set them aside and work on making sure they're all glued together before I build them into my clusters. And while I've been doing all that, I've come to some decisions about how I want all of these elements to go together. So I'm going to build up these layers with this kind of pink and blue pattern with the darker, that pattern is more of a kind of a navy blue back there. And I'm just going to rough up my edges a little bit to give it more of a softer feel. So you can see me scraping my fingernail along all these edges. And I'm going to layer up that tissue paper behind all of my blocks of pattern paper layers here. So my vertical block of layers is ready to go, and I turn my attention to a horizontal element for some balance. And I use all of the paper strip branding strips from those pattern papers that are left over, and I'm just going to rough them all up and glue them all down in this horizontal strip. And I left that gap in my block purposefully so that I could build my title up in that zone, so it can add kind of the horizontal element. Now I'm thinking here that this is getting pretty busy for my taste, and so I want to calm it down a little bit with adding a big white border around everything. So I cut my base floral paper down a little bit and add a white cardstock sheet as a border as I continue to work on all of these elements. And then I decide this purple paper is actually too wide, so I just pull out my water and trim it down a little bit. And while that is drying, I decide I'm going to gut this floral pattern paper just a little bit because I don't need the whole block. It's going to be covered up. And then I go ahead and adhere that down to my background cardstock, and that will be the base for this whole layout. I give it a little bit of roughed up texture, and then I'm ready to pull my layers back in and decide to finally start gluing things down. I tend to kind of move things around and fuss a little bit before I get to that point where I just need to glue things down and I get to it. So here is my vertical element all ready to go. And then I can spell out my title, and then I can get that adhered down, and then I can turn to some of my embellishing. So I wanted to add this chipboard flower into the middle of my title there, and I just detacked it on the back of my skin and then added a pop dot, and then I'm ready to start building all of my clusters based on all of those pieces that I had set aside. Now some of these colors, like that bold ooh la la, is a little overwhelming to me, so I'm trying to cover up some of that color with my embellishments as I go. I wanted to pull that color in from the bottom up to the top with another kind of reddish orange flower so that there's some balance. And then I incorporate those floral embellishments that I made out of the stickers, the fingernail stickers, underneath some other layers so it's subtle. And then I use the stamp to create these little hand embellishments because I thought the hand with the heart fit very well with this theme. And as I was working all this, I realized I forgot about my enamel hearts that I had created. So I pull those in and start building those into my cluster. And you'll notice I added some more tissue paper as another horizontal element, and that's going to be where my journaling will go. And that's because that pattern paper is so busy, I need a landing space for my journaling so that it's readable. And then once I've fussed with everything and gotten all my pieces where I want them to go, I can start adhering things down, and I won't make you watch me glue things into place. So that brings us to the end of the gluing, and here is a tip that I like to do. Once I've had all of these layers set aside, I flip my layout upside down just to make sure everything actually is glued in place. And then I move on to some finishing touches. Now that alphabet set was a very similar color to my background paper, so I just outlined it with a black ink pen, and that helps give it more grounding and emphasis, and that makes it stand out more. I added a black border around with my pen. It's a messy border, something I do a lot. I finished my journaling. I stamped the date on there with a roller stamp. And here you can see all of these last details that I added. And so my layout is done. I will leave you with some still photos of the project. Now this layout is much busier than pages I usually do, but I had fun playing with some of these kind of funky elements, and I hope you did too. If you got anything helpful out of this video, please do give it a like. It really does help my channel grow. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.